Every Amish farm has three buckets you'd recognize: the milking bucket, the feed bucket, the slop bucket for the pigs. But there's a fourth one. It doesn't sit in the barn or the kitchen, it sits behind the outbuilding next to the compost pile, covered with a warped piece of plywood held down by a rock. The sides are stained dark brown from seasons of use, and if you walk within 10 feet of it on a July afternoon, the smell will hit you like a wall. Something died in that bucket. That's technically true. Banana peels, eggshells, coffee grounds collected from the English neighbors down the road, fish heads and guts from cleaning day, wood ash scooped out of the cook stove, a tablespoon of Epsom salt from the bathroom cabinet, and well water poured over the top until everything disappears under the surface. It sits for 2 weeks, it ferments, it bubbles, uh, the surface grows, a film that looks like something you'd find floating on a pond in August. Then she walks through the garden, pouring it at the base of every plant she owns: tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, cucumbers, herbs, flowers, everything gets the same drink. Once a month, May through September, 5 months, 5 applications, total cost for an entire growing season about $1. That dollar is a tablespoon of Epsom salt per batch. Everything else came out of a trash can. Her neighbor down the road, the one with the nice suburban lot and the two-car garage, spends $140 a year. Miracle Grow, Osmocote slow-release granules, fish emulsion from a plastic bottle, tomato-specific fertilizer in a green jug with a picture of a perfect tomato on the label. He follows every direction. He measures his doses with the cap. He gets decent tomatoes, maybe 15, 20 per plant if it's a good year. She gets 2, 3 times that, easily. Peppers so heavy, the branches split by July if she doesn't stake them. Flowers that keep blooming 3 full weeks after everything at the garden center has gone brown and leggy. Same soil, same county, same sun, same rain. The difference is the bucket, $1, and the willingness to let something ugly work. My name is Jacob. If you've ever looked at an Amish garden and wondered how they grow like that without a single bag of commercial fertilizer in sight, subscribe. We break down exactly these kinds of field-tested, dirt-cheap growing methods every single week. No sponsors, no product placements, just the stuff that actually produces food. 7 ingredients go into that bucket. Each one is something you're currently throwing away or pouring down the drain. Each one delivers a specific nutrient your soil is starving for. And when they ferment together in water for 2 weeks, they produce a living liquid fertilizer that no product on any shelf at Home Depot can replicate, because the version in the green jug was never alive. The first ingredient is sitting on your kitchen counter right now. You probably threw one away this morning. Banana peels, the ones your kids leave on the counter. The ones that turn black in the fruit bowl because nobody ate the last banana before it's spotted. Potassium. That's what a banana peel is loaded with. And potassium is the nutrient that drives fruit production in every plant that flowers before it. Fruits, tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers, eggplant. Every time you throw a banana peel in the garbage, you're tossing the one mineral that turns a blossom into a tomato. The Amish don't eat a lot of bananas. Their English neighbors do, and every peel finds its way into the bucket, chopped roughly, not sliced thin, not mashed into paste, just torn into 3 or 4 pieces by hand and dropped in. Here's the part most gardening channels skip. If you bury banana peels directly in your garden soil, it takes months for the potassium to become plant available. The cell walls are tough. Soil bacteria have to break them down layer by layer, and by the time the potassium releases, the growing season's half gone. Fermentation breaks those cell walls in days. The acidic environment inside the bucket dissolves what soil takes an entire season to process. By the time you pour the diluted liquid on your tomatoes, the potassium is already in solution, already available, ready the moment it hits the root zone. Now, the second ingredient. This one fixes a problem that ruins more tomato harvests than drought, disease, and bad weather combined. Eggshells. You've heard this one before. Every gardening blog on the internet tells you to crush eggshells and sprinkle them around your tomato plants. And it's not wrong. It's just slow. Painfully, uselessly slow. A whole eggshell tossed on the surface of a garden bed takes 2 to 3 years to fully decompose. That's not a typo. Years. The calcium is locked inside a crystalline matrix of calcium carbonate that soil bacteria barely scratch. But crush those same shells, drop them into an acidic ferment bubbling with bacterial activity, and the acid dissolves the carbonate in days. What takes your garden bed 3 years happens in the bucket in under 2 weeks, and that calcium goes straight to work, strengthening cell walls and preventing the one condition that turns tomato growers into tomato mourners: blossom end rot. That black, sunken, leathery patch on the bottom of your tomato that shows up right when the fruit is almost ripe, it's a calcium deficiency, not a disease, not a fungus, a missing mineral. You've been throwing away the cure every time you make breakfast. 2 ingredients in, 2 nutrients unlocked, and we haven't even gotten to the one that makes the entire operation smell like something law enforcement should probably investigate. 1,800 miles from the nearest Amish kitchen, in break rooms and coffee shops across the country, the third ingredient gets dumped in the trash by the pound every single morning: coffee grounds. If you drink coffee, you produce nitrogen fertilizer before you leave for work. 2% nitrogen by dry weight, plus magnesium, calcium, iron, and chromium. Nearly all of it ends up in a landfill. The Amish don't drink much coffee, but they know what it's worth. Families collect used grounds from their non-Amish neighbors, a standing arrangement. You bag your grounds, they pick them up, the grounds go in the bucket. Nitrogen drives leaf growth, stem thickness, and that deep green color that tells you a plant is running at full capacity. In the ferment, grounds release nitrogen into solution within a week. Applied raw on soil, the same release takes an entire growing season. Now, ingredient 4. This is the one that separates the Amish bucket from every DIY fertilizer recipe on Pinterest. And this is the reason the operation smells the way it smells. Fish scraps: heads, bones, skin, guts, everything left over after cleaning day, the fins still attached, the eyes clouded over, the smell already working before it even hits the water. Amish families who farm near rivers and ponds have an endless supply. The rest trade for it the same way they trade for coffee grounds. Nothing wasted. Everything cycled back into the soil it came from. Fish tissue is dense with phosphorus. Phosphorus governs root development and flowering. It determines whether a plant barely produces or overproduces all season long. And the trace minerals buried in fish bones, the calcium, Magnesium and sulfur are the micronutrients that commercial fertilizer companies skip because they're expensive to isolate and hard to stabilize in liquid form. When fish scraps sit in that warm, acidic bucket, the proteins break apart into amino acids. Plants absorb amino acids directly through their root membranes. No waiting for soil bacteria to convert anything. No bottleneck. The nutrition arrives pre-digested. That's what the smell is. Protein becoming amino acid becoming plant food. The stink isn't a side effect, it's the sound of the engine running. And here's the part nobody in the fertilizer aisle wants you to sit with. The worse it smells, the better it's working. 4 ingredients in the bucket: potassium from peels, calcium from shells, nitrogen from grounds, phosphorus and amino acids from fish. Most DIY fertilizer videos would stop right here. Roll the credits, slap a recipe card on the screen. But the Amish recipe doesn't stop at nutrition. The last 3 ingredients engineer the environment inside the bucket itself. Ingredient 5: wood ash. A cup at a time, scooped from the cook stove after it cools. Hardwood only. Oak, maple, hickory, cherry. Never treated lumber. Never charcoal briquettes from a bag. Never painted, stained, or pressure-treated wood of any kind. Those carry chemicals that have no business in your soil and no business in the bucket. Wood ash delivers a second dose of potassium, but that's not the main reason it's here. It's here for pH. Wood ash is alkaline. It nudges the acidity of the ferment upward just enough to balance the coffee grounds and the fish, which both push the pH down. Too acidic and the fermentation stalls. Too alkaline and the beneficial bacteria die. 1 cup of ash per 5-gallon bucket, that's the ratio. More than that, and you're overcorrecting, and your soil pH will drift too high for most vegetables. The Amish have an unlimited supply. From October to April, the wood stove runs all day. The ash bucket fills twice a week. By spring, there's enough banked up to feed every garden in the community. Ingredient 6. The only thing in the bucket that costs money. Epsom salt. 1 level tablespoon per 5-gallon batch. Magnesium sulfate. Magnesium sits at the center of every chlorophyll molecule in every green plant on the planet. Without it, photosynthesis slows, leaves yellow between the veins, growth stalls. Sulfur aids protein synthesis in root tissue. 1 tablespoon delivers both minerals into the ferment. A 4-pound carton of Epsom salt runs $2 to $4 at any pharmacy or grocery store. 1 carton lasts the entire growing season, multiple batches, multiple months, that's your dollar. The only purchased ingredient in the entire recipe. Ingredient 7. The one everybody overlooks because it sounds too obvious to matter. Water. But not any water. Well, water. Rainwater. Or municipal tap water that's been sitting uncovered in a separate bucket for 24 hours. The water isn't just a carrier, it's the habitat. Chlorinated city water kills the beneficial bacteria that drive the entire fermentation process. Pour chlorinated tap water over your fish scraps and coffee grounds and nothing happens. No bubbling, no breakdown, no conversion. Dead microbes make dead fertilizer. If you're on municipal water, fill a bucket the day before and leave it uncovered overnight. Chlorine is a gas. It evaporates in 24 hours. After that, the water is safe to build a living culture in. 7 ingredients, all in the bucket, covered with water, stirred, sealed loosely, And what happens inside that 5-gallon container over the next 14 days can't be rushed, can't be shortcut, and can't be replicated in a factory. 7 ingredients. The transformation starts on day 3. Stir it once a day for the first 3 days. A stick, a paint stirrer, a wooden spoon you'll never cook with again. This kicks off aerobic bacterial activity. Bacteria shredding fish protein into amino acids, acid dissolving calcium from the shells, potassium leaching out of the peels and ash. The smell is the proof. By day 12 to 14, in warm weather, it's done. Bubbling has stopped. Color has darkened to deep brown or near black. The smell has shifted from active rot to something earthier, more like a forest floor after rain. Still strong, but no longer hostile. That's the finished product. But pour it on your garden full strength and you'll burn every plant it touches. The pH is too low, the concentration too sharp. Undiluted bucket ferment on roots isn't fertilizer, it's acid. 10 to 1. That's the ratio. Scoop 1 canful of concentrate from the bucket, pour it into a 2-gallon watering can, fill the rest with clean water. The liquid turns the color of weak iced tea. The smell drops from aggressive to barely detectable. An hour later, standing in the same spot, you won't smell anything at all. Pour at the base of each plant. At the base, not over the top, not on the leaves, not through a sprinkler head. Even diluted, the acidity can scorch leaf tissue if it sits on foliage in direct sun. Water the soil, let the roots take it in. 1 2-gallon can covers 15 to 20 plants. Walk the rows, give each plant a slow, steady pour at the stem. Move on. Once a month, May through September, 5 applications per growing season. That's the entire schedule. One quick rule before we move on. Fish goes in, other meat doesn't. No dairy, no citrus in large amounts, no treated wood ash, no pet waste, no diseased plants. Those 6 things wreck the ferment or introduce problems you don't want near your food. Everything else is fair game. So does the bucket actually deliver? Does the word exploded in the title hold up under anything resembling honest scrutiny? Here's what the garden looks like, week by week after the first pour. The first visible change shows up within 2 weeks of the first application. Leaf color deepens. Not overnight, not all at once, but side by side with an unfed control plant, the difference is clear enough to see from the end of the row. The green shifts from faded, washed out denim to something richer, darker, closer to the deep forest green you see in catalog photos and always assumed was just good lighting. It wasn't. That color is nitrogen at work. The coffee, ground nitrogen, and the fish, amino acids, hit the root zone, feed chlorophyll production from the soil up, and the leaves respond. By the end of the first month, flowering increases. More blooms per cluster on the tomato plants. More pepper flowers holding and setting fruit instead of yellowing and dropping to the ground. That's the phosphorus and potassium arriving in plant-available form. The roots absorbed what the ferment delivered, and the plant is doing the only thing it knows how to do with a full tank of fuel. More flowers, more fruit, more of both. Month 2 is where the title stops being a promise and starts being a description. Amish gardeners who've used this method for years will tell you their tomato plants produce significantly more fruit than anything their neighbors grow. Not a little more. Dramatically more. The difference isn't the tomato variety, it isn't some heirloom seed vault, it isn't the weather or the latitude or the phase of the moon, it's the soil underneath. Pepper plants produce noticeably heavier harvests. Squash vines run longer and set more fruit at every node. Flower beds bloom deep into October when the neighbor's petunias burned out in mid-September. By month 3, the shift goes underground. The soil itself is changing. Turn a shovel and you'll see it. Darker color, richer texture, more earthworms per cubic foot, sometimes dramatically more. The soil holds moisture longer after a rain. It stops cracking, open in dry spells. It smells alive, like a forest floor, not like dead construction fill. The bucket isn't just feeding the plants anymore, it's feeding the microbial ecosystem in the soil that feeds the plants for free between applications. The first month, the bucket does the work. The second month, the soil starts helping. By the third month, the soil is doing half the job on its own. And the smell? It peaked on day 5 through 7 in the bucket. By day 14, it's settled to earthy. Once diluted, 10 to 1, it's barely there. An hour after pouring, the garden smells like damp soil and nothing else. One ugly afternoon per month. 3 months of production that makes the neighbor with the green jug wonder what he's doing wrong. But here's the part that separates the bucket from every commercial product on the market. And it's not the ingredients or the smell or the cost. It's what happens beneath the surface, in the soil itself, that the fertilizer industry has no interest in you understanding. The entire commercial fertilizer business runs on a single idea: feed the plant nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, the 3 numbers on the bag, mix with water, pour, repeat, buy more next spring, and it works for 1 season. The problem is what it skips. Synthetic fertilizer bypasses the soil entirely. The microbial community that's been converting organic matter into plant nutrition for 400 million years gets nothing. No carbon, no amino acids, no food. Over years of synthetic-only feeding, the soil dies functionally. You need more product each season to get the same results because the biological engine that used to work for free has been starved out. Miracle Grow is a meal, the bucket is a kitchen, the ferment delivers a living culture of bacteria, dissolved carbon, amino acids, and trace minerals directly into the soil food web. Those bacteria multiply, colonize roots, and break down organic matter already in the ground. By the third application, the soil is generating its own fertility between pores. The Amish didn't design this from a textbook, they inherited it. Amish families have farmed the same ground for 150 years without synthetic inputs. The bucket is one tool in a system that includes crop rotation, composting, cover cropping, and animal manure. A system that's kept soil productive across 6 generations on the same plots. That's not folksy charm, that's agricultural engineering on a generational timeline. Start with the bucket, the rest follows. And now the math. Because once you see the numbers side by side, you won't look at a bottle of Miracle Grow the same way again. $1 in Epsom salt, that's the annual cost. Everything else is waste you were already throwing away. The commercial equivalent for a garden of the same size? Miracle Grow, tomato-specific fertilizer, bloom booster, and a bottle of fish emulsion. $80 to $180 a year, depending on garden size and how many specialty products you grabbed off the end cap. $1 versus $140. That's not a coupon. That's not a savings tip. That's a completely different relationship with the ground you grow food in. And that bucket is still out there, behind the barn, under the warped plywood, stained dark from years of use, still smelling like a swamp that decided to become productive. The same bucket from the first minute of this video, still ugly, still fermenting, still doing what it's been doing on Amish farms for longer than any commercial fertilizer brand has existed. Out of everything we covered, one thing stays with me. Month 3. The moment the soil itself changed. That's the moment the bucket stopped being about the plants and started being about the dirt. The plants were always just the visible evidence that something invisible was happening underneath. You're living in a time when the price of feeding yourself keeps climbing. When soil in most American backyards has been biologically dead for decades. When a bag of October 10th 10 costs more every spring and delivers less every year because the ground underneath it has nothing left to give. The Amish solved this 150 years ago. The answer sits behind the barn. It costs $1, and it starts with the things you were going to throw away tonight. What are you putting in your bucket? Are you running banana peels and fish scraps? Have you tried wood ash from the fire pit? Got a neighbor who'll save coffee grounds? Drop your recipe in the comments. I want to see what everyone's fermenting. If this changed the way you think about your garden or about the dirt underneath it, hit that like button. And if you know somebody who's spending $140 a year on fertilizer they don't need, send them this video. Their wallet will thank you. Their tomatoes will thank you even louder. If this changed how you think about your garden, subscribe. We do this every week. Next week, we're going deeper into Amish soil science, specifically the fall cover cropping method they've used for over a century that most American gardeners have never heard of, and why it's the reason their plots are still producing after 6 generations on the same ground. You don't want to miss it. Next week, we're going deeper into Amish soil science, specifically the fall cover cropping method they've used for over a century that most American gardeners have never heard of, and why it's the reason their plots are still producing after 6 generations on the same ground. You don't want to miss it. Next week, we're going deeper into Amish soil science, specifically the fall cover cropping method they've used for over a century that most American gardeners have never heard of, and why it's the reason their plots are still producing after 6 generations on the same ground. You don't want to miss it.